Okay, we are now live. Hi, this is Erinn Morgan. I am the editor-in-chief of Eye Care Business Magazine, and we are here today for the 5th installment in our Eye Care Business Strategy series for COVID-19. We've been having fantastic attendance and viewership of our videos on this. We stream live to Facebook, and we stream live to our YouTube channel. So, and those will live there continuously afterwards. It also goes on to eyecarebusiness.com. So if you want to share it with anyone after the fact, please feel free. We are very excited to be here today with 4 panelists that are amazing folks, business owners and opticians across the country and in Canada as well. And I'm very grateful to everyone for joining. Sheena Taff here to my side is she is an optician and optical manager at Robertson Brown Opticians in Vancouver, Canada. Sheena was also instrumental in helping to organize this panel discussion today. So a huge thanks to Sheena. And she is the Optician About Town on Instagram. So, she has a great Instagram page there. And then we also have next to Sheena, Johnna Dukes, and Johnna is an optician and business owner at Optique in, did you say it's Spirit Lake?
That's correct.
Spirit Lake, Iowa, which sounds like a wonderful place. And she is also the vice president of the Opticians Association of America. So thank you for joining us, Johnna. And then the guys down here, we have Ryan from Spex by Ryan, and Ryan is in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. And I just looked that up on Google Maps, and that is a pretty impressive place to be. It looks like a very cool city. And thanks so much for joining us, Ryan. We're excited to have you here today. And then Nate Ogura is also with us, eyes on Fremont in Seattle, Washington. So we're excited to have Nate here. I know you kind of, have been at the forefront of the whole epicenter in the beginning of, COVID-19. So we're looking forward to hearing your feedback, because maybe you're a bit ahead of everybody else with getting in.
It's been a long journey.
There is no doubt. So thank you all for joining us. This is a tremendous amount of knowledge and information here in one room, so to speak. So thank you all. Again, before we get into our questions for our panelists, I'm gonna, every live stream that we've been doing, we have been, first of all, I just wanna say to our viewers, you can feel free to, as we move along, feel free to type in comments, questions, just tell us who you are and where you're watching from, and feel free to put that into the comment bar, into Facebook, and also into YouTube, and we will see it. I'll get it up here. I see right away that Jen Chin, who is an optometrist and one of our Eye Care Business Game Changers, she is watching us. She says, "What an awesome panel, thumbs up." And thank you for joining us, Jen. We appreciate that. And we are, so I'll get into that, but you can feel free to type in your questions, and we can answer those later when we get into our Q&A portion of this with our panelists. So each of these series, I've been kind of updating folks. We've been running an Eye Care Business COVID-19 and ECP's focus group study, and that has gone out to our readership of over 40,000 eye care professionals across the country, and we've had tremendous response to that, and the statistics that we're pulling out of that are incredibly telling, about the different stages of what's going on, and the insights and the feedback and the actions that you all are taking. So we appreciate everyone who has participated in that study, and I'm going to share just a couple of the key stats with you now to kind of set the stage as we move into our discussion with these 4 amazing folks. So the first statistic I'll share with you is one that this is our 3rd wave of the study. We've asked this question every wave, and it has only continued to become more evident, the answer to this question. So the question is, do you expect to experience a financial impact to your business due to COVID-19? And certainly everyone expects some impact. You can't be shut down and not doing business, but it depends on the amount of impact. So no one said no, that they don't expect an impact. And now about 14% of folks said yes, expecting some impact. And 85% of folks said yes, expecting a significant impact to my bottom line and my business. So we've also asked, has your office temporarily laid off or even let go permanently of staff members due to COVID-19? The answer to that is yes, temporarily laid off staff members, 67%. Yes, permanently let go of staff members, only 1.5% of our responses said that. So that's great to see. The folks that said no, we have not laid off or let go, 27%. And then considering plan to do so was only 3%, and a very small percent, 1% said don't know yet, it's too soon to tell. So it's great that most folks seem to feel that either they haven't laid off folks or they're laid them off, furloughed them, and then planning to bring them back. The next question is, when are you starting to or plan to start to, given local restrictions and recommendations, to reschedule appointments? So this was a big one. We had almost 30% of folks said May 1st. We had almost 30% of readers tell us May 15th. And then another 18% said June 1st. And then after that, it gets lower and lower. So we're hearing a lot of people feeling that, a lot of eye care professionals feeling that it's going to be soon, that we're going to start rescheduling appointments, as soon as within a week and a half. The last two questions we asked, one was, do you plan to reopen your business practice, or might you need to close permanently, given the problems and the financial difficulties? So almost 94% said plan to reopen. Definitely, not going to close the business. The folks that said plan to close the business, 2.5% of our respondents said that they weren't unable to reopen due to financial problems. And then 4% said not sure yet. So it's a small percent, but it's still some. We've got, about almost 7% of folks saying we're not going to reopen, or we're not sure if we're going to be able to. So we asked the question, given all of this, how would you rate your current stress level on a scale of 1 to 10? I thought it would be higher. Our average was 6.5 out of 10. So that was very encouraging to see. And you guys you look pretty relaxed. So has it I'm sure it's been a stressful period, but you all look great. And I think people are kind of, it was very, very stressful in the beginning. And then certainly we've all kind of tried to formulate plans and rejigger and figure things out. So I'll start here, maybe with Sheena with our first question. And can you please just tell us a little bit about your business, for the viewers? How many years have you been in business? Do you have an OD in-house? What's your specialty or focus? Do you do in-house lab processing to send everything out? Kind of where are you guys positioned at Robertson Brown Opticians?
So we are an independent optical shop that is 30 years old. I'm the second generation optician that has taken the reins since my father, who opened the optical shop, retired. We do not have an OD on site, but we do have an on-site lab. And we are very diverse in our patient base, but we have a huge pediatric practice. So we have about 50% of our patients are under the age of 16 years old, and we have nearly an equal amount of children's frames as we do adult frames. So over 100 kids frames in store.
That's amazing. That's very cool. I love that you guys have such a great kids focus, because that's hard to find these days. So, and Johnna, how about Optique? How are you? What are your kind of focus there?
Yeah, we are in a rural community. However, we do like to think we bring a bit of big city style to rural America. So we've definitely tried to make our focus a little bit more about opticianry in general, to make people aware of what it is we do and why what we do is of benefit to them. We are definitely patient-centric. We do the kind of one-on-one talking with people, finding out what their needs are, and loves are, and then trying to do our best to make sure that they're out in the world wearing something they feel amazing and beautiful in. We do have a doctor in-house, and June 15th will actually be our 10th anniversary.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. That's great. And what's your closest city there? What are you, if you're in a rural area?
Yeah, we're about 3 hours from Des Moines. We're about 3 hours from Minneapolis, and about an hour and a half from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So we're in the corner of Northwest Iowa, kind of straddling 3 states.
Oh, wow, that's great. So you're not that far from Ryan. Well, relatively.
You know, in the winter, we feel like we're in Canada.
Yeah.
So, and Ryan, how long have you guys been in business, and what's your focus there at Spex by Ryan?
We just celebrated our 5th year in business, and actually just opened up our 2nd location in Saskatchewan.
Congratulations.
Which is a couple hours away, and it was open for about 8 days before we had to shut it down. So we're calling it a really, really soft opening. And we focus, we're independent as well, and are only dealing in independent eyewear, mostly high-end eyewear, that kind of a thing. So no optometrist. So we're here, much like Johnna. We are, we're a bigger small city. We're a couple 100,000 people, but we like to think that we bring the big city style to the little city as well. So same kind of thing. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for joining us. And Nate, you're in Seattle, so you've kind of been through the ringer there a bit as things started. What is the focus at Eyes on Fremont, and how long have you guys been in business?
So we've been through the ringer. As you know, we were the first COVID-19 example in the country, I think, because of somebody coming back to a nursing home. But Eyes on Fremont, for the most part, we opened in 1996, and we have focused on very independent, very affordable, very nicely made eyewear. And so we generally run with about 9 to 10 opticians on staff at any point, and it's a daily kind of thing. That's who knows what's gonna happen.
No doubt.
Yeah.
It's you know, once you think you know you have things dialed in, you think everything changes, and every day is a different story, you know.
Very quickly.
And everyone's kind of being you know, in this phase of now ramping up and trying to figure out what do we need to reopen when we can reopen, or some are even reopening. I know Texas, some of the folks that we deal with our readers and our contributors there, you know, planning to open up in a week. I'm here in Colorado, and we're, you know, they're allowed to open now in a week. So it's all kind of happening very quickly, but I know a lot of folks can't get, you know, a lot of the stuff that they need, like the PPE and disinfecting, you know, wipes and things like that. So it's a bit of a scramble. I'm just going to run through in the same order and ask each of you. So can you tell us where your locality, where your community is at with, you know, are you under a stay-at-home order? When does that expire? When do you expect have you been closed? Have you been open for emergency care? And when do you expect that you can reopen? So maybe we can just start again with Sheena.
So we are still under social distancing orders, and non-essential businesses are closed. We are an essential service, but in order to protect our staff and our patients and the community, we are operating behind closed doors. I have been doing it. Luckily, I work with my husband. We've been doing it solo, so self-isolating at home, and then in the optical shop with patients in a much more virtual fashion. Lots of curbside pickup, lots of deliveries. But when it comes to especially children, they're breaking their glasses, they're scratching their lenses, they are still coming in with new or coming to the door with new prescriptions. So we have been very much operating behind the scenes as much as we can. And we are hoping to resume some new modified business practices as of the 15th of May.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's great. So you have a little bit of time, but just a couple of weeks. And Johnna, you said that in Iowa, you haven't been under stay-at-home orders. So where are you at with your business, and what are the plans for the near future?
Yeah, somewhat similar to Sheena, we are operating with closed doors. We do have normal office hours, 10:30 to 3, so abbreviated hours per day. Myself and one other staff member are there, and we've got a giant space, so we're definitely far enough away from each other. A lot of curbside dispensing, a lot of contact lens drop ship, things of that nature. Our doctor will come in for emergencies, but as far as routine care, we're not doing that. It's kind of an interesting thing in the Midwest because we're so rural and we are such a farming centric area. The stay-at-home order has been prevented simply because the farmers need to get product in the fields. And so with that, everyone has been encouraged very heavily with social distancing and wearing masks in public and things of that nature. But as far as when to reopen, we are likely not going to hit our peak here until early next month is kind of what the local information leads us to. And so at that point, when exactly we will feel it safe to see patients, we don't have an answer for that. I wish I had more information. I would love to think next month. As far as hard and fast numbers, since there was no formal stay-at-home order, there is no formal quote-unquote
reopening. Right. That makes it, that's an interesting perspective, because you hear so many folks saying, okay, we have to reopen and we have to do it now. And yes, and then when you do get the reopening, that makes it a lot clearer. But for your situation, you really have to gauge it yourself to figure out when that makes the most sense. Yes. So, and Ryan, how about you in your part of Canada? What are you guys? Are you also a stay-at-home order?
Oh yeah. It's the same here, and it's just been over a month now that we've been closed. The first week, I completely shut down and didn't even come into the store from probably a Thursday to the next Monday, so about 8 days or so. And that week was time to about wonder and fear and all that kind of stuff, all the emotions and eating and drinking and all the good things. But then I was thinking, okay, I got to do something productive, and I thought, I said to myself, I'm going to go into the store for a few hours every day, so like 11 till 2, and I still had some straggling orders I had to deal with, and it's turned into I'm here like 11ish to 4 or 5 or even 6 sometimes, dealing with my dog ate my glasses, I need contacts, I need all sorts of things, and again, behind closed doors and very safely, but I've been busy. I'm not bored. My staff is laid off, but we will have a program in Canada to help cover those people returning at 75% of their wage. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
I'm just waiting for that to be all finalized for us. But I've been working on, website development, doing a little more. I've always been kind of against the whole online shopping thing, mostly because in the type of eyewear that we provide, the high end stuff, I don't want returns. And when people spend $100 online for glasses and they don't like them, well, it's only $100. I don't care. But when they're spending $600, $700, $800, $1,000 or more, and it doesn't quite work because everybody thinks whatever picture we post on Instagram that they'd look great on them, when I would say probably 90% of the time they don't look very good or they don't work. So anyway, we're trying to look into some 3D virtual try-on stuff. We're just poking around with that kind of stuff right now, and trying to reconnect be smarter in business and all sorts of things. So this has been a good experience actually for me. I'm not thrilled with the lack of income, but we're still selling a few things here and there, and I think it's a good reset for everybody to just be better, and let's try technology and this kind of stuff that we're doing here. I've never seen as many webinars and podcasts and all that stuff in all my life, and maybe I'm ready for a break on it after this, but yeah, it's So our province is I think we flattened the curve. Actually, we're going to be getting an announcement today where we're going to start to hear about how things are going to slowly reopen. Not like flicking the light switch on, but we're going to slowly reopen. So I can see over the next month we will be getting more and more back to normal. Like this first month has seemed like we've been through so much, and yet I feel we've peaked. But the rest of the country, the rest of the world, they're different stories. So I don't know how that's going to work if we're kind of half-assed open and then other places aren't. And yeah.
It's going to be really, I think this next phase is interesting. And our governor of Colorado just did a press conference and he said, well, we've been through the sprint and now we're entering the marathon. And this is the really hard part. It's I mean, the other part was very, very difficult too, but certainly this is the long-term, this is the endurance training for sure. So, and Nate, how about you guys in Seattle? So where is Seattle at and Washington at with stay at home? And
so right now we are at stay at home until May 4th.
Okay.
Which seems pretty okay. As far as elective medical procedures, we're out to May 18th or 16th. Forgive me if it's not right on the date. And so that's a little bit dicey just because we do have an OD on staff and they see patients 6 days a week. And so, not be able to do regular eye exams, impacts our business to say the least, I guess you could say. If there are, 10 to 12 people coming in for eye exams a day and we can't see those people, that's a problem. We have been open very much the same as Ryan, very limited hours, and Johnna, limited hours with myself and one other person on staff. And much to Ryan's sentiments, we've been busy enough that it's been okay. Although that level of business is quite diminished from say, February 2020. February to March was a pretty drastic drop off, I guess you could say. And so it's determining, what we can do from there, move forward, everything else. And there's the PPE, conversation, reopening, everything else. There's also the PPP conversation, the EID conversation. If I get any more initials in my head, like
they need something that's not P, doesn't have a lot of P's in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of P's in everything. So right now, I'm not too sure if Washington State will open May 4th. I would actually think that we will not. I think that they'll kick the can down the road a little bit more. And so my overall feeling is that this is going to be a much longer conversation than what we think right now, so to speak, to get to February 2020 business levels.
No doubt. We had a conversation, we had an interview in this series with Brian Bolio. He's an economist that always speaks at the Vision Council's Executive Summit. He's chief economist with ITR Economics. It's was a great conversation, and he focuses, he deals with the economy in general and is contracted by, Fortune 100 companies to provide economic outlooks. But he also focuses on our industry, and he had a kind of a very positive outlook for our industry because it is healthcare, because it is a medical need. And he did say, he's projecting full recovery for eye care and eyewear by the end of 2021. So that was his, I know. It's I mean, I'm going to go with it because that sounded pretty good. Pretty optimistic. I just want to share some numbers since you mentioned kind of, the drop in sales, and we'll be publishing this in iCare Business. And it's also, we put out a COVID-19 email newsletter from Pentavision, which is our parent company, with all our publications. And this is going to be in that as well. But we've been working with GPN, which they track sales data from offices, practices across the country. And they have all nearly 3,000 businesses, practices that they track sales data from. And the drop from, even just in exams from February to March was maybe like a 40% drop. And the drop from March into April is, the exams go from about 500,000 to 29,000. So, we'll have this info in our May issue, which will be up soon. But it's really telling to how how dramatic that drop is. So anyway, our next, and before we get into our next question, I'm just going to give a little bit of a shout out to some of the folks because we're getting a lot of comments and a lot of folks here joining us. So we have a welcome to Jen Davis Flottam. She's an optician watching from Jacobson Advanced Eye Care in Cumberland, Wisconsin. And then we have Brian Schuler. Hi, Brian. Brian's from Wallman Optical, and he has been joining us for several of our strategy series, and he is here. And we also have Nate Troxel here, who is with Think About Your Eyes, formerly with PPG. And Brian Schuler also says hello to Nate because they know each other. And Nate asks, not a business question, but he says, how are the Canadians doing without hockey? And Nate, if you don't know Nate, he's a huge hockey fan. So the question is probably more, how is Nate doing without hockey than anyone else? So, but obviously we have no sports. But any comments there from the Canadian folks?
For me, actually, where's basketball at? We're a basketball country now, right? The Raptors won, so. My girls all play basketball, so that's where I'm just like ready to, get that going again. Hockey, I broke up with hockey a few years ago, but yeah. No, sports in general, it's so weird when they're showing, dog shows on ESPN type stuff, and no real, sports anymore at all. So. Yeah, it's just weird. But Nate, you'll get your Penguins back. Don't worry. It's coming. That's
great. So, and we have Felix Marks from Colors in Optics is watching. And we have Michelle Miller from Bouquet Mulligan de Mayo Eye in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. That is the business that is owned and operated by Jim Mulligan, who was on our panel last week. And hi, Michelle, thanks for joining us. She said they're planning to reopen May 4th. We also have a nice comment from Debbie Bartlett, who's the president of the Opticians Association of America. And she says, great group. And we have Justin Mosley. Hi, I'm an optician watching from Broadway Vision Source, Eagle Grove, Iowa. So back there in Johnna's neck of the woods. So, looking at this from the independent optician perspective and, as a business owner and an independent optician, doing what you do, is very unique. What do you think are some of the unique realities of going through this in your own positions with your own businesses, versus a, kind of a more typical optometric practice, or even just in your own world as a business owner? What are some of the unique challenges that you're dealing with? And maybe we'll start this time and go around the different way and start with Nate. What do you see, kind of as the unique challenges for you?
So I don't know if I would call it a challenge. It is a challenge, of course. This is a problem. But, it's listening to Tom Burke the other day on I think it was Monday, Tom was
Yes,
on.
that was on our, yes. Thanks for joining that. I saw you.
Yeah, no, that was pretty great because Tom, you guys spoke a little bit about Warby Parker. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize about Warby Parker that people don't talk about is that, you know, they have brought to foresight the term value. And the term value in eye care has been vastly underrated for the past couple decades, I think. And value ranges from, you know, Ryan, you do, you know, $1,000 pairs of eyeglasses. You know, Sheena, you probably do, you know, $600 pairs of eyeglasses. Johnna, I don't know what your business does, anything else, but it's, you know, value ranges from it's a vast array of what the term value is. And value as a term has been devalued because people just think, okay, $29.99 at America's Best for 2 pairs of eyeglasses. The thing is, there's great value in $1,000 pairs of eyeglasses. There's great value in $500 pairs of eyeglasses. There's great value in $250 pairs of eyeglasses. It's the culmination of the product, the price, and the experience. And so I think moving forward, it's, you know, this is going to be a somewhat of a call to action for all the independents to realize, hey, you really need to look at how you are in a value-based atmosphere because the economy is going to change. You know, whether it's good, bad, who knows? We don't know. The horizon isn't quite there. But if we can start to decipher what we can do as independents to offer the greatest value for our patients at whatever price point it is, that's important.
Definitely.
And that's my, and it's, Tom hit on that on Monday really, really well. You know, it's, he talked about, you know, the product, you know, giving your patients the best possible product at the best possible price. And, you know, he's on a little bit different end of the spectrum just because he's doing lenses.
Sure.
And we're a little bit more on the end consumer line. And so we have to think about experience as well. So if you can make, you know, product, price, and experience all together, you're going to come out of this pretty well, is my suspicion.
Right. I think that's a really good point. And I think it, you know, and I want to ask Ryan the same question, but, you know, since you are so high end, Ryan, you know, I want to ask you, you know, what you think about the high end and, you know, okay, so what are your unique challenges, you know, as you specifically as a business owner, but you're high end, right? So, and we've got, you know, in the US, we've got 22 million people out of work who now don't have as much, you know, disposable income. Other folks are, you know, probably feeling a little bit tighter with their wallets than normal. You know, what is the path? Is there a new path to success with the high end? You know, how do we approach that? And because it's such an integral part of the eyewear experience.
You know, this is obviously a unique situation, but we've been through bad economies in the past, like 2008 and other times where you think, well, nobody's going to want this stuff. They still do. There's still that segment of the population who wants quality. And we don't just do high end. We do, you know, mid range as well. Like it's not all $1,000 pairs of glasses, but again, what Nate was talking about was the experience. And that's what we really have strived for. And it's what we're really going to come out of this, even working harder towards, is making that experience strong. Because in our city, there's really not much for others doing the same as what we're doing. So we're fairly niche. And same thing with our new Saskatoon location. So again, we're going to provide that experience and that atmosphere and that vibe that those who there's still a lot of people that are working. They're working from home. You know, they just can't go out and spend their money. And I'm not overly worried. I don't sense a very depressed mood around town or in our area. I think people are actually enjoying this time, but they're definitely ready to like burst open and like be social again. But just this last month of me working where I thought the first few days when I was coming back to just shore up those loose ends and finish up some of those straggling orders, I thought I would do that, and then I would have all the time in the world to get to my admin stuff, to finally tackle my year end and all this kind of stuff. Year end is still waiting for me, and it's been proven to me that there's still a demand and a want and a desire for what Spex by Ryan is offering, and so that's been very encouraging, because that first week that I had off at home, it was like, well, does anybody like, is this the end of the world or what? No, it's
right.
You know what? Again, we've been through recessions, bad economies in the past, and if you just keep doing your job well, and you got to get more creative, and that's the fun part of business, I find, is that, we're just a squirrel trying to get a nut, and we're gonna do our best to find different angles and every night I'm thinking of a new idea of how I can connect with my clients and get better. So I guess I'm a positive fellow, and
I love that. That's fantastic. Well, and I think you're right. And the service, to Nate's point too, that service and the experience is ever more critical today. So, and that is going to look completely different, now that we'll all have masks on and have distancing. So, Johnna, how about, you folks at Optique and being rural, what are you seeing as your unique challenges and I know that you are there in partnership with an optometrist. Is that correct at Optique?
An optometrist on staff. Well,
okay. Oh, you have an optometrist on staff.
But yes, we do have an optometrist in our office.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think this has definitely been a time of reflection, a time to really try and focus on what you can do better. And, to Nate's point, I think experience, Brian mentioned it as well, experience for our clients is going to be paramount when this is all said and done. Recently, I was chatting with a friend of mine, and we were talking about, what does business look like now? And something that really came to me was companies who care. And I think that is a really big deal right now. I think people want to be cared for. I think, I know for myself, I need to feel like, I'm cared for. I want to care for my friends, my family. And to take that opportunity to really talk to our clients, reiterate that we do care for them. We will be here for them when this is all said and done. I think that has been something that, has always been important to us, but is even more important to us in these particular times.
Right, definitely. So, and Sheena, with your business, what are kind of your unique challenges? And I know you're kind of on the higher end too. Is that a similar feel for you as well with this experience and that high end isn't going away, at this stage?
I think that one thing that all of us have in common and is a really great characteristic of the independent optician is we are incredibly hands-on in helping our patients select frames. It's, I always laugh when someone comes in and says, oh, I'm just browsing, because that's not what we do at our job. We are there to fit you and guide you through the process. So I actually think the experience that a lot of my patients have had previous with me, choosing frames for them is to be an advantage going forward, because they know that they're not left to their own devices. They may be more inclined to refer friends and family because they know they can come in. We can have a consultation even beforehand virtually, and they can enter the store with me prepared with a selection of frames to have a really customized experience. And then to Nate's point, that adds an incredible amount of value because we are doing an abundance of work in selecting frames prior to taking the guesswork out and really having that personalized styling experience.
That's great. That's fantastic. And I think, yes, we'll get into that part of, kind of how to approach that and the nuts and bolts of things. And we're getting a lot of questions on that front of, what's the new normal going to be in the optical. But I'll give a little bit of shout out to some more folks. We have a lot more comments We have Ojeki Nwakidi. He is from Nigeria and Lagos, Nigeria, and he has been joining us for almost every panel discussion. So thank you so much for, I don't know what time it is in Nigeria, but I really appreciate you joining, and you've had some really great comments and questions. So thank you again, and my apologies if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. And we have Vance Whiteside. We'll have several questions, and we're going to answer those at the end here. We have Zaf Kalfan from Delta Optical. We have Robert Sarasong, who has a couple of questions. We have Jennifer Felix, who says, shout out to the Yakamaniacs in the room. Does anybody know, is that a Seattle thing?
That's a Washington thing.
A Washington thing. Okay, Yakamaniacs. And then we have Michelle Miller. She has a good question that we'll address later. Spex Around Town is here. Julie Cooch is here. Jennifer Centeno. Hey, Jen. I know Jen from the OWA. And then we have Jessica Stripe from Blink Eyewear in Collingwood, Ontario. We also have Rose from SGA in Florida, and she's got a question as well. And then, Jim Mulligan is also watching, and he says, hello, and everyone's specs look great. Yes, so we definitely, Sheena was just telling us she's got Andy Wolf, is that correct?
Yes.
And Johnna is wearing?
Todd Rogers.
Todd Rogers. I've got my Kita on. What do you have on down there, Ryan and Nate?
Leisure Society.
Nice.
I have a Garrett Light.
Nice. All right. This is a good representation of the industry. So, I want to get into, because we're going to have a little bit more time here, and then we'll get into our questions from the audience, and we have a lot of them. And some of them are related to what we're talking about, but I want to get into the solutions part of this. So we talked about kind of when you're thinking about your reopening. Let's talk about some of these best strategies and best practices for reopening. So when you reopen, what are you thinking? PPE for staff, like, will everyone be wearing a mask? Will you ask patients to wear masks? How will you disinfect? Kind of what are the protocols that you are coming up with right now that you're going to put in place, that you're going to train your staff to do? How are you approaching that? And I'm going to have another question about this more specifically on PPE, but I have heard from our survey, we had, 100 people say, I can't find PPE, like I'm dying, we're trying to find it to get open. So if you're talking about PPE when I'm running through and asking you this question, and if you have any suggestions on where to get that, that would be super helpful to people that are watching, because I see this a lot on the questions too in the comments. So maybe if we could start with Sheena. And so kind of what are some of the protocols that you're putting in place, for reopening and strategies and staff training?
My biggest strategy is going to be encouraging patients to make appointments. So it's not necessarily something that we did before. It's something we've been doing over the last little while behind closed doors to make appointments, just so there's not a lineup of people waiting at the door to pick things up or drop things off. So I think that we're going to maintain taking appointments, have 2 opticians on site, one which will be booked with a patients, and one which will be readily available for walk-in clients. I've also removed a fitting table from the practice in order to increase the distance between patients, and really trying to just control how many people are in the store by communicating, making an appointment, and bringing as few people as possible, which with families and kids can be a problem, because it's mom, dad, brother, sister, and all of a sudden there's more than 30 people in my store at once, with only a few patients that need attention. So really maintaining appointments, And all of my staff will be wearing masks, cloth masks, not necessarily full, full face guards and everything, because we also want to make sure that our patients feel comfortable interacting with us in this new era.
Right, for sure. And, to that point, I just wanted to mention that we had a comment from one of our readers in our survey that said that what they decided to do was to take 2 dispensing tables and put them together, and that they, instead of having one 24-inch table between them and the patient, they put 2 24-inch tables together, and now they have 48 inches between them and the patient. So I thought that was kind of clever to, I don't know. I mean, obviously it's pretty far apart, and I don't know, it's such a touchy-feely, profession. How does that work? What do you guys think about that spacing?
I don't think I'll be putting glasses on patients' faces anymore.
From 48 inches,
table and allowing them to put them on their own face. And then on our fitting tables, we have a stationary chair for our patients, and we have a rolling chair for ourselves. So even in the few emergency interactions that I've had to have with patients, I've asked them to come and sit down, and I have rolled myself away from them on the stool. So we're still having a face-to-face conversation, but the distance in between us is significantly greater.
Greater, for sure. So, and how about at Optique, Johnna? What are you folks doing in terms of setting protocols?
Yeah, very similar to what Sheena mentioned. We are asking if someone has come with the patient that they stay in their vehicle. We're discussing doing things like, we're procuring a touchless thermometer so we can take people's temperatures, asking them to hand sanitize as they arrive, really being very cognizant of how many people are in our space, not only for our safety, but for theirs as well. And then also when it comes to adjusting and fitting and things of that nature, I think little things like Sheena mentioned, having the patient pick up the glasses and put them on, asking them to turn down their own ear so we can see behind it without us having
that makes sense.
That step. Sanitation, 100%. I'm sure going to be really careful of how many people we see per day. So I'm sure those numbers are going to be much smaller. And then of course, things like pre-screening questions. Have you traveled? Are you feeling ill? Things of that nature before we, even get to that place where they're coming into the store. So, there's a lot of things. We'll be wearing masks and things like that too, as far as like taking pupillary distances. Actually, Erinn mentioned that there are some shields for pupillometers that can be procured, I believe, through Rochester Optical. So we're certainly going to be looking into that. We've removed all of the reading materials from our lounge area. We don't call it the reading room, we call it the lounge. Just things like that to really make cleaning very easy and, just less things to be touched.
Right. It's amazing once you start thinking about it. And I don't know if you all saw this, when everything first started, but a nurse, it kind of went viral, and she put paint on her hands, and she kind of went around and touched everything and showed how quickly, the paint was the virus, and, everything that you touched and where it was. And yeah, that was pretty powerful. So once you think about that lounge area and everywhere else, the touching becomes, yes, especially in this profession, for sure. So Ryan, what are you guys doing in terms of, protocols? What's your strategy?
That reminds me of a story when I first came back after my week off, and I had a fellow who really needed new glasses. He broke his glasses, and he was on the phone, and I said, "Have you been traveling?" And he goes, "No." "Feeling sick?" He said, "No." "Okay, you realize our frames are going to average $500, right? I don't want any tire kickers." And he's, "Oh no, I know, I've been there." I was basically, are you worthy? Are you gonna, you good enough to come in? I don't know, I don't want to get sick or anything. So anyway, it worked out well. He was in for 20 minutes, kept our distance, washed our hands a lot. I don't know if I could honestly follow through with doing all of the procedures all the time, mask, gloves, everything all the time,
Right.
without just going crazy. You know what? I'm just going to wash my hands. We're going to wipe things down. We're going to, where does it end? Before you just say, look, we can't do this. Like I'm not going to be in a hazmat suit. Maybe I'm just naive or lazy, but I again, we'll keep people to a minimum in the store.
Right.
And spread out. And just like Johnna said, hey, you put your glasses on and do this and show me. And I've done adjustments out in front of my store. There was a retired fellow who was in his car. He stayed in his car. I came to the passenger side. I grabbed his glasses, or he put them on. I said, I looked at him. I said, okay, give them to me. And I adjusted them on the spot, gave them back to him. And he's, yep, that's good. And he drove off. So, there's curbside service for you. But, again, I think we've flattened it out here pretty good. And I don't know if all that stuff is completely necessary. And then again, where does it end? That's just my thought. And, I'm doing everything I can. But again, washing hands, we get people to Purell themselves when they walk in. And what more do you do?
Well, it's interesting, and it's a great perspective, and I think we all go to the grocery store, right? Or maybe you don't, I don't know, but I've been doing curbside pickup, and I have one grocery store, my health food store, that I do go into, and I wear, my hat, and I've got my wraparound sunglasses, and I've got my mask, and I've got my, high jacket on, and it's exhausting, right? And you go in and then you pick everything out, and then I'm wearing rubber gloves, and then you go home, and then you have to disinfect everything. And it's like, where does it end? But I think it's easier for us to have that perspective. I live in Durango, Colorado, population of 18,000. We've had, 50 cases. So it's different, and no deaths so far, luckily. But, let's see how Nate feels in Seattle, because that's a whole different ballgame. What do you feel about protocols and procedures?
So it's a little bit complicated. To be honest, it's moving forward in Seattle has become just us being open. We have not been deemed essential or non-essential yet,
Right.
Unfortunately. That's the problem. We don't know.
And you don't have an OD on staff, is that correct?
We have an OD on. We have an OD, but she's not seeing any normal eye exams.
Okay.
All elective medical procedures have been put on hold until May 18th. So we're not doing regular eye exams. And so the problem is, oddly enough, with glasses, there are a lot of people with 20/20 vision that are taking their walks in the afternoon with their significant other. And so I was out in front of the store maybe a week and a half ago, and a couple walked by and they were like, oh yeah, eyeglasses, those definitely aren't essential.
You might need to see
Meanwhile,
to drive. Yeah.
earlier that day, I had actually cut down some -7, type prescriptions for somebody who had fallen on their glasses the night before. And I'm pretty sure if the zombies were attacking tomorrow, that -7 person would think that glasses were essential. Like, if the zombies start running at us, the -7 thinks is essential. The 20/20 person, they might be okay with everything else. So it's a dicey thing because, social shaming is a real thing in Seattle right now that I want to be careful with. And look, we have the hand sanitizer. We're bleaching everything down consistently, everything else, but also the idea of, somebody's Facebook post going viral saying, Eyes on Fremont is not, they're open, they're part of the problem. That's a real issue. That
is it's a good point.
Yeah, trying to figure out the pulse of each individual market, whether it's Iowa, Canada, wherever, Colorado, it's an interesting dichotomy that it's tough right now. And nobody knows the answer because nobody knows the horizon yet.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. It's and anything could happen, and we could have another wave. Who knows? You could get a second wave, and
It's the second wave, I think, is something that may be really serious, and so who knows?
right.
That part.
So, well, thanks for that perspective, and I think that's great perspective to have. I'm going to just address a couple of quick questions from our audience since we're getting in towards our end time here. Jennifer Chin, the optometrist in California, she says, what new sanitation techniques will you guys be implementing? There's a lot of question of the best ways to sanitize frames. Is it soap and water, sterilizing, UV? What are you thinking? And this was a conversation we were actually all having just a bit ago on the back end of our broadcast studio. How do you sanitize frames? I was mentioning we have something on our website at icarebusiness.com. It's in our COVID-19 resources page, which is right on our homepage, that talks about ways to sterilize acetate and also metal that won't affect the frame. But of course, there are many other materials. And is titanium, different than a regular metal? So, does anybody want to take that question, or everyone?
I think that the majority of us probably have an ultrasonic cleaner in our practice. I know as opticians, we handle grody glasses all the time, and everyone's gotten green nose pads and all kinds of things. So as far as cleaning and disinfecting frames before we adjust them, I think the majority of us already do that. Going forward, I've moved the ultrasonic cleaner right to the front desk, and I'll be asking patients to place the glasses in a tray, and I will drop them from the tray into the ultrasonic cleaner that has cool water with a mild dish detergent in it, and run it through a 2-minute cycle before I take them out and handle them. And then I'll be washing my hands and cleaning the water thereafter.
That's great. Anybody else have different protocols for disinfecting frames?
I'm a big fan of soap and water. I think that soap and water is kind of the way to go.
Definitely. And that keeps it simple, and then that's something you can get. You don't have to worry about buying some Lysol wipes to wipe down your frames. Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, thanks you guys for that input. We also have some comments, questions from Robert Sarason, and Robert says that he owns an optical store in Grove. It's called Grove Opticians in Boca Raton, Florida. No doctor, no lab, luxury clientele. So Robert has a couple of questions, and we have addressed some of this. I'll just read all of his questions, and then we can kind of see what makes sense to address. How can a customer view your selection? Is curbside selection feasible? I've actually had a comment on our reader survey that, and one optical shop said they were doing frame appointments in the car of the person that was coming. They were doing it in the car. The appointment was physically held in the car, but that doesn't actually seem super safe because it's the person's car. Who knows, what's in there. If they are sick, then that's a, kind of question. And it's certainly not 6 feet apart. And I've had this question has come up a couple of times in our comments here. How can a customer see exactly how they look over a mask? So when they're trying on the frames, we ask them to keep the mask on. Can they take the mask off? What are those protocols? And these are all things that need to be decided. And his third question is regarding the intimacy of fit and adjustments. How do both sides stay within suggested guidelines? 6 feet apart isn't really feasible when you're trying to fit a frame. So does anybody want to take any of those or all of those questions? The mask question, I think, and the intimacy of fit and adjustments is real relevant, and we haven't really covered that.
Regarding the mask, I'd be happy to take a crack at that one. I think when it comes to fit, obviously that's one of the things that we as opticians are very well versed in. And to be able to look at someone, they may not be able to know totally what that's going to look like on them with a mask, but we will.
For sure.
Whether something fits a bridge or not, we know that. So that's definitely something that, this is going to be uncharted territory. I don't think anybody knows all the answers to, obviously our arms aren't 6 feet long. We can't do an adjustment without entering that space, So as far as going within those recommendations, there's only so much we can do. Some of this is going to be new for all of us, and we don't know all the answers to that certainly at this point. But when it comes to fit, I would say for myself personally, that's something I'm going to really be focusing in on, is making sure that we're talking about a proper bridge fit, whether or not that frame has capability to be modified. And, again, we know those things as opticians where it may be more difficult for a client to see it in that way.
That's great, Johnna. Thank you. And it leads me to a quick question. It made me wonder, do you think there at any stage, or, could we maybe see from the Opticians Association of America any guidelines that you folks are working on?
I can certainly take that back to the board as far as, creating guidelines. Traditionally, what we like to do is make sure we're following the guidelines that are established. We're
sure, by the CDC. Or...
Right. Yep. And so as far as creating new ones, I don't know. Again, I'll take it to the board and see what they have to say about that. But, when it comes right down to it with that kind of thing, there are some realities about proximity that we have to be in order to provide care. And so I'm sure we'll be weighing in from optometrists as well. I'm sure we'll be weighing in from, a lot of the folks and, possibly even dental to see what they're doing, because again, there are other fields similar to ours that have similar challenges, and we're all going to have to learn how we move forward now.
For sure. And it will be different for everyone, in their own personal circumstances, at their own risk level in their community and whatnot. So that will definitely be different. Anybody else have any other comments here, or I'll move on to another quick question?
I think go ahead, Nate.
I think, really quickly, the risk level comes into play when you're bringing staff back on. It's how comfortable is the staff with working with everybody, because it's I think just like everything else in our business, we should be able to assess the customer's level of confidence and comfort with us. And if the staff is, willing to adjust a pair of glasses on somebody without the 6 foot, guideline, maybe they probably should. It's, it's tricky. It's always the, it's the flip of the coin. Are you part of the problem, or are you part of, the solution and everything else? But the thing is, our industry is it's just that you have to adjust something behind somebody's ears. You have to adjust something on somebody's nose, things of that nature. And so it's really kind of gauging, we all talk about the level of customer service, everything else. And you have to gauge the customer and their level of acceptance, or their, how comfortable they are with everything. And so I think that's going to be the tricky thing, both on the customer level and the staffing level.
Right, for sure. Sheena, did you want to add to that?
I think communicating with your patients, if you've narrowed it down to 1 or 2 frames, you can say to your patient, I'm going to step away for a minute and I'm going to allow you to try these on, and you can take your mask off, and I'm going to be, 6-8 feet over here, because I'm, I've determined they fit correctly, and now it just comes down to a style aesthetic. So I want you to be able to see what it's going to look like, with and without a mask. And when it comes to adjustments, as Nate said, it's really impossible for us to adjust glasses without getting close to patients. But having that communication and saying, I'm going to make an adjustment to your glasses, and then I'm going to step away and ask you how they feel, so that we're not having a conversation like this. We can have a conversation like this, and then I can come back and make any adjustments, so that someone's not talking. We're not talking in each other's faces.
Right. That's great. Well, speaking of adjustments, I'm realizing mine need a terrible adjustment, and I can't get to anyone right now to do that. So I might need one of you later to walk me through how to adjust my Makita frame, because I'm having to look down to do it and they keep sliding off. So anyway, I'm going to tap into you, Sheena, later. Maybe you can tell me how to get those adjusted. So I'm just going to give a couple of quick shout outs and then we'll have one more quick question. And I thank you guys for hanging on here. We've had so many folks here, with us, watching us, that we really appreciate everyone joining. So I'll just give a couple of shout outs. We have Mayara Castillo Lave. She says, hello, Ryan. I'm your biggest fan. So that's not very nice.
Hey, Mayara.
Yes. And then we have Gail Krufall. We have Onno Ruek, who Onno was on our last panel discussion as well. And he is an optician, an optometrist from the Netherlands. They've been in lockdown since February 22nd, which is 2 months of lockdown. So we're glad that you're here with us, Onno, and good luck over there. That sounds like a tough go. We also have Donna Anderson. And Donna, I'm going to get back to your question. I'll make that our last question because that's a great question. We have Carla Williams. She says, bonjour. She is, I believe that is our friend from France. And then we have Spex Around Towns asking another question, Michelle Miller. And a question that we have from Donna, and this relates to a question, I think, as well from Spex Around Town. Well, that's kind of different. Hers is a little bit different. But so Donna says, how will the panel approach product buying going forward? It was a question we asked in our reader survey. And as we said, are you going to limit your product buying or your amount of vendors, or, you're doing less sales right now? And a surprising amount of folks said they either were not going to limit product buying, or they were just kind of waiting to see, how things came out here in another month or so. So what do you folks think, what product, and then also just handling the whole process of getting products in and returns and going to trade shows? I mean, it's a huge topic, right? Like, how do you see your reps? Do you want everything online? So what are your feelings? Does anybody want to take that one?
I will.
Okay.
So that's very interesting because this was going to be the first year in, probably a dozen years that I was not going to be attending Vision Expo in New York. With the opening of our new store and my kids in basketball all March, there was just no way for me to do that. So I was already doing some FaceTime appointments before all of this ever happened. And I just thought it was so efficient. And for a lot of the road warriors who are traveling so far, especially for us, like, we're definitely not on their way anywhere. Like, we're out of the way. So I felt it was just an efficient way of doing business. And I'm not that needy. I can tell what a frame looks like if someone's holding it and they're doing this and that. And, I don't need, somebody, coddling me when I'm choosing frames. It's nice to see them in person, obviously, but I think that's going to be a wave of the future as well. A lot more, appointments like that, and looking forward to trade shows again down the road. But overall, I think it's, all this technology, all this kind of stuff, people are going to be working differently from now on. And frames, definitely we haven't needed a whole lot more lately, but the show must go on. We're going to need frames. We're going to need lenses, all the stuff. So it's coming.
Right. Anyone else in terms of, are you still receiving product orders? Have you kind of put a stop to, sending things back? Where are you at with that?
We just, we had some big orders that we just paused. That's all. So, we'll resume that when we get back. Again, life goes on. We just don't want products sitting here that we got to pay for that we're not, really able to sell a whole lot. So,
sure.
Overall, we'll get back to normal.
What do you think, Nate, for you guys there in Seattle, you probably have access to a lot of reps and see a lot of folks. What are you thinking?
To be honest, we actually don't see a whole lot of reps. We see a relatively small number of reps. We actually do, consistently, we do Vision Expo East, we do Silmo in the fall, and those are our two big, buys.
Nice.
Frame-wise. Everything else, we do a number of frame lines that have no U.S. reps or U.S. distribution, anything else.
Right.
And so, what Ryan's talking about, once you get to know a frame line, and if you can go to their website and see the shape and know what 8 colors they consistently use, and so if they say, okay, it's this shape in color 6, generally you can get a lot done with that. So
Definitely.
it's about building relationships with consistent vendors that you want to work with moving forward. And once you build that relationship, that's, that can do a lot. But, how do you find the new vendors? That's the one thing where, the trade shows are I think the trade shows are important still.
Definitely.
Expo, I think Somo, Mito, everything. It's important just so that you can get some face-to-face time, to get to know a new product. It may not be, it may not be doing the business with your existing accounts, but the new products out there. That's what the trade shows are important for, I think.
Absolutely. And to really kind of sit and, walk through and see all that newness, and that it creates a lot of excitement and ideas and inspiration, for sure. I think we will certainly see trade shows doing new protocols and standards as well, undoubtedly, moving forward. We had a really cool comment from Onno over in the Netherlands. He said, in the past, we had brands ship the whole collection before the reps came in, and then they kind of went through and looked at everything and picked and discussed after that. Maybe that will be possible for some. It's a possibility. Jim Mulligan last week mentioned something like that too, or them to ship a sample. If you don't want them to come in, you could ship a selection, especially if it's someone new, so that you can get a feel for the quality and the construction of the collection. Okay, so we're kind of like, thanks to everyone so much we kind of went a little bit over. I'm going to just ask everyone to wrap it up with my last quick question. Do you have any kind of, down and dirty, what's your best bit of advice for your peers, for your friends in this industry, from what you've been through as in your own business? And maybe we'll just start with Sheena. Kind of what's your best advice, nugget of advice for folks in this moment?
I would say reach out to others in the industry and don't be shy to ask questions. I would say that's probably one of the toughest things about this whole process. With an independent practice, you don't have anybody guiding you through the process. You just kind of have to decide what feels right for your business and your staff and make a decision. And that was one of the hardest things early on, for me to do. But I made some quick decisions, and they turned out to be the really right decisions. So I think that really reaching out to my peers and asking what they're doing, what's working. We're all navigating this new and changing landscape. And I think that that an open line of communication with our industry peers will just help lift the whole industry and patient experience.
That's great. It's great advice. And it's certainly, I think why we've had such great attendance to these live streams, because people want to hear, and want to connect. And the fact that we can go back and forth and have questions and comments and have a discourse with the audience, I think that really, speaks to that need to connect. And Johnna, what would be your best advice?
I actually heard this from a good friend of mine, because I needed to hear it the other day too. And what she said to me was advice from her mother. And she said, you have to start where you are, not where you wish you were. And for anybody who needs to hear this right now today, this isn't where any of us wish we were, right? And this isn't your fault. This isn't anybody's fault. This is something that's happening to all of us. And, everyone's experience is a little bit different, but the truth of the matter is, when we get right back to it, we have to start where we are. And, I hope for those of us who, feel personally connected to our businesses, this is tough, you know? And so we need to be kind to ourselves. You know, like Sheena said, reach out to your peers. You know, I've not spoken to anybody in this industry who doesn't want to help. I mean, and that is the number one thing that I've gotten is how can we help each other? And I think that our peers in particular care very deeply about our industry, care very deeply about our clients. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about what we get to do in our industry as a whole is we are full of people who really do care about us and want to see our industry move forward.
It's so true. It's a wonderful family, isn't it?
It is.
All right. So, and Ryan, what's your kind of view of best advice you've got, given your, you know, vantage point?
Well, as much as it is our peers, it's also our local business peers that have been so supportive. And I've never felt such a shop local sentiment ever before. And that's what's encouraging. I've been getting to know more and more of my fellow business owners, even though I knew who this person was, but now I really know them a lot more through all of this. And we are kind of sticking together in all of this as well. So your local, you know, shops on your street, you know, like really work together to help support each other, and you know that, you know, help other businesses and they will help you. You know, that's the, you know, it's not just about us; it's about helping your neighbor and your other local businesses who might be struggling. And people remember that stuff, you know. So that would be my advice.
It's great perspective, and no doubt, you know, what businesses do right now will be remembered for a very long time, 100%, and the help that they provide. And I think that community aspect is so important. You know, it's never been a better time to band together with your other businesses in your community. So Nate, from Seattle, kind of what's your vantage point for best advice?
It's what I would say is I would take what Ryan said and run with that, just because through all of the PPP, EIDL situations, everything else, I'll put it very frankly, I bank with US Bank is my main bank account, and US Bank was pretty unhelpful.
I have heard that.
And so I actually have a mortgage through a community bank, and they were actually able to get me through the PPP process, everything else. And so, you know, just even from something as simple as banking, everything else, it's, you know, on the other end of this, it's going to be a real reflection in, okay, are we going to continue banking with US Bank or Bank of America or whatever else? Or is there Washington Trust Bank that I can deal with and give a call to somebody and be like, hey, can we do this? Can we not do this? Anything else? You know, having a decision maker on the phone is, it's been very, very eventful for me, so to speak. So, by the way, my PPP loan just got funded this morning through my community bank. And so
congratulations.
Yeah.
You're rich.
It's exciting. Meanwhile, you know, US Bank, who I've kept a lot of money with for a long time, was pretty unhelpful. And so it's just re-examining those relationships, you know, I think from a banking level, from a vendor relationship standpoint of view, everything else, you know, it's a time to reflect on all of those things.
Absolutely. What businesses do right now is going to be remembered and acted upon, no doubt, you know, in the future. So that's great advice and great insight. So thank you all so much. And I so appreciate you staying a little bit longer here. We still have comments coming in and people joining on and asking things, but we really appreciate everybody. And we'll be back here next Wednesday with another panel discussion with some more fantastic folks. Keep an eye on our Facebook page and watch your email for information on that and our information on our panelists, and we'll have more strategies and ideas. And this will live on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel if you want to share it or watch it again. And thank you all so much. Thank you, Sheena, Johnna, Ryan, and Nate. You guys are fantastic. Good luck with everything, and we'll see you. Hopefully, we'll see you soon at Vision Expo.
Hey, let's hope.
See you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.